bring in Jim Michalczewski, who we also have on the phone right now. Jim, can you tell us what you're hearing from U.S. officials?
Well, U.S. officials tell NBC News that this appears to be an attack very similar to the one that the Israelis conducted in January when they launched an airstrike against a convoy of anti-aircraft missiles that were believed destined for Hezbollah in Lebanon. According to the officials, this was something very similar. It was a weapons shipment of some kind, not clear exactly what the weapons were, but it's believed that, at least it's clear that the Israelis believed that this was a shipment of weapons that would have been headed into the hands of Hezbollah. Now, interestingly enough, the Israelis, quite frankly, openly acknowledge that they've conducted this attack. And just last week, in a joint news conference with Defense Secretary Hagel in Tel Aviv, Moshe Yaalon, the Israeli defense minister, said, you know, the Israelis also have a set of red lines, just like the U.S. does, in terms of how far Syria can go inside of Syria before action will be taken. But the number one red line for the Israelis is that sophisticated weapons do not find their way from Syria into the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon for obvious reasons. And the defense minister acknowledged that Syria, in fact, had crossed the red line in January, and that the Israelis took action. They have the same kinds of concerns in the U.S. that the U.S. has about chemical weapons and the like. And quite frankly, you get a sense that as long as the battle stays in Syria, Israel, they don't like the conflict on their border, but they're not going to intervene. But it's when you talk Hezbollah that they will take action, and they did again tonight, apparently.
Just to be clear, both airstrikes, the one on the January airstrike and the new airstrike, which we are just confirmed tonight, the breaking news that we have for you at this moment, which is confirmation of an Israeli airstrike in Syria. Both of those are in Syria. And so my question to you is, what does that mean from the perspective of the region, from the perspective of the U.S.? Is this an escalation that there is no climb down from, or will this be the new status quo? Is that what we are seeing as Israel asserting its right to strike inside Syria when and if it chooses to?
It's definitely the latter. There was some initial concern and jitters after that first strike by the Israelis in January, but everything immediately settled down. This part of that battle is between Hezbollah, Israel, and Syria. And as long as it stays in that realm, it's likely not to go any further. After all, several years ago, and I'm sorry I can't remember the year offhand, but the Israelis launched airstrikes that took out a Syrian nuclear facility that was in the making, and Syria did not issue a single protest because, of course, they didn't want to acknowledge they were making a nuclear facility. But that went away in very short order. So there's nobody within the U.S. government that thinks these kinds of strikes by Israel against weapons shipments destined for Hezbollah is going to have any collateral effect and expand the war that's now inside Syria.
Yes, although, of course, Hezbollah does pose it is on Israel's northern border and has been involved in military action with Israel in the past.